Hey there guys, welcome to Creator Showcase, where we attempt to find your next favorite content creator. I'm your host FT Wilbur, and here I'm joined today by Twitch broadcaster, political commentator, and educational streamer, PixelSmixel. Pixel,
Hello.
thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
I am really interested in your story because even just as we were setting this chat up, as I was kind of going through some tech things, you let slip a couple of bits of information that I didn't know that I found really interesting. So I think we're in for an interesting episode today. So first up, I'd really be interested in finding out how you got started on Twitch and how that sort of evolved into the sort of content that you do today.
Well, I was at university studying forensic psychology and I was playing Dota 2 with my friends. At which point they were like, "You're kind of funny. People might watch you play this." One, because I'm a woman. And they thought that might be a bit of a leg up. But two, just because, we were playing games, so might as well try. And then it kind of evolved from there. I started like talking at the beginning of my streams. And then we would do this thing called Real Talk Tuesday, where we'd watch like lectures or TED Talks or whatever kind of educational videos. And yeah, that's what my community enjoyed, and it kind of just kept growing from there. And then we realized I had a newsreader voice, and yeah, that's how I ended up where I am today. Just lots of little accidents.
Yeah, that's awesome though. And I've been talking a lot about this stuff in vlogs lately and with other creators and people in my sort of friend group. But I think that's a great example of finding, what comes, not only what comes naturally to you, but also sort of your strengths and what makes you up as a person. And it's obviously things that you enjoy. Would you say that you enjoy that style of sort of educational and covering world events, that sort of content, more enjoyable than you did just the gaming side of things?
Look, it definitely sits into my passions really easily, but it was actually TwitchCon in 2019 where I was about ready to quit streaming, because I felt like I couldn't have an opinion because I needed to appeal to sponsors, to be able to make enough money to survive, basically, because that's kind of the format for being a streamer. You have to have sponsors. But what ended up happening was, when I kind of had made up my mind to quit, I was like, okay, well, fuck it. Let's go. And I just started, speaking politically and being open about my opinions. And from that, my community just started supporting me more to a point where I didn't need the sponsors in order to be able to make this a job. It was the community. It was community funded. And I don't know if that works for everyone. And it was a pretty scary shift to make. But I'm very glad I did now, looking back.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's a bold move to hear that story after sort of everything that I've been reading lately and kind of all the research I've been doing into streaming and content creation and all the chats that I've been having over the years now. That's a real like sort of burn the boats scenario, in a sense, like you're doubling down on what you love and what you think is right and what is the most authentic, I think. And it just makes me so happy to hear that people responded positively to that and that people obviously saw that you were being authentic, because I think as people we have pretty good bullshit meters, as far as that goes, some better than others, but I think when someone's being authentic, that's really attractive.
People can tell if you're sitting there being something that you're not, for
Absolutely.
sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. I totally agree. So that's really interesting. So it started out as a segment and then it sort of became more of the focus. And you also sing on your stream.
I do.
And you mentioned previously that you actually were training as a ballet dancer
Yep.
for a good while there. Do you maybe want to talk about like maybe where the singing background comes from, and was it? I'm assuming maybe if you were in ballet, you were put your like sort of dipped your toe into musical theater as well.
Yes. So
Yeah.
I think my mum put me into singing lessons when I was about 11. I remember I had to sing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer or something at the audition for it.
Right.
But then I had like 5 years of singing lessons, and I did ballet and violin, but ballet became my main love because I was pretty good at it. So I ended up leaving school in year 10 and doing homeschool, and studying to be a ballet dancer until I was 19. And then
Damn.
yeah, due to some medical and health issues, I was like, yeah, no, that is not going to be my path. So I did musicals, amateur musicals for a while, and I've always really loved singing. And I never thought anybody would listen to me sing, but then Twitch Sings came up on Twitch.
Oh yeah. That which is
Rest in
since,
peace.
yeah, I
Yeah,
was gonna
it's yeah.
say.
It's gone now, but it did, and that's when people first heard my voice, and they were like, "Wait, you can sing?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, a little bit." But now I've just lost all shame. I almost get to sing like a few songs every night, which has been so incredible for just practicing and relaxing, and it really makes covering the news more bearable because I can kind of wind down there at the end, and it's nice.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Again, bringing another part of yourself into your stream and like,
Yeah.
and it being really well received. That's
On
fantastic.
my view account used to drop significantly when I started singing. I was like, oh God, nobody likes this. Because when you build a stream, you build on a specific type of interaction. And
Totally.
so when you shift from that interaction, people tend to kind of like migrate. But because so many people have now found like little bits of my singing, my view account doesn't drop as much because there are people that come in specifically just for the few songs at the end, which is nice.
Yeah, that is really
Yeah.
nice. It is always a pleasure to have one in the background, I must say. And I said this to you before, but I just want to make a point of saying it again. You do have a fantastic voice,
Oh,
and
thank
it
you.
is always a
That's
pleasure
very nice.
listening to you. That's really interesting you say that because I totally agree with the whole sort of, an audience gets used to a specific type of content. How long do you think it sort of took to integrate that? Like after, like would you say it sort of happened fairly quickly when it became a regular thing, or did it sort of take a little while before that sort of drop in view count sort of leveled out?
I don't think anybody could call my growth on this platform like fast or
Mm,
major or anything like that. I would say I'm probably one of the slowest moving streamers. Like there are people who started after me who are much bigger than me now.
mm,
And but it just kind of depends on how your community builds and what you're building. When you are building a community and kind of trying to find your people, it can go so many different ways. And there's always communities that come into yours and come out of yours, and it's like building those connections that matter, sort of, because like if somebody raises you with a community that's entirely different and you're a small streamer, then that can really shift even the way your smaller community works, if that makes sense.
yeah.
So I work really hard to foster my community and make sure that the values that I want in my stream are like really upheld, which are just, like kindness and respect and meaningful discussion without bigotry. So
I think those are really
yeah. You
really
would think that
fair
they
qualities to
yeah,
ask for.
you think they're normal though, but because people don't always talk politics on Twitch, a lot of people don't know what is and isn't acceptable. And so like I'll give people chances to like learn and things like that, but to a certain point I make sure that the conversation is flowing the way it should.
And
Yeah.
and just sorry, just for the record, how long have you been streaming on Twitch now?
It's 6 years. So my first stream was at the very end of 2017, but I probably started streaming about March 2018, I think, consistently.
Right.
Yeah, so
Amazing.
it's 6 years, I think.
Yeah, a while now. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
And what is it that interests you about politics and world events? Like why do you think that you want to create content around that?
Honestly, I think it's a little bit of my own unhinged cope. I find it very disconcerting not to know what's going on in the world. Like I find that uncomfortable. So if I can inform myself in a community setting where it doesn't feel as doom scrolly as it can, when you're just
Yeah.
scrolling through news or watching the news by yourself or
Mm-hmm.
doom scrolling Twitter, then that's what I do. And I think a lot of people in the community find that consuming it all together is more comfortable. Like there's a lot going on and it's hard to process and it's hard to have the required level of education to be able to process what's going on. And so I try really hard to make it accessible, not only to my audience, but to myself.
Just while we're on sort of the topic of politics and world news, I'm trying out a few new things here today on Creator Showcase, and I'm asking some questions that kind of I suppose I'm kind of trying to enact this practice in my everyday life, but it's sort of like moving towards the uncomfortable and just trying out things that potentially I maybe thought, oh, that's a bit risque, or that may or may not work. So we're just going to give these a try today, and this may be the situation that informs future questions like this. But I did just
Yeah,
want to
sure.
ask, just because I'm very curious as to your opinion, like on a personal level, because like I said, I've lurked a fair few of your streams. I kind of was doing that long before we met IRL, by chance. Um, how do you feel about Anthony Albanese as Prime Minister?
I think a literal shoe would have been better than Scott Morrison. So, yeah, the bar was pretty low for me.
Mm,
That being said, I am pretty impressed as to what they've managed to achieve before the end of this year. Like, it's
mm,
been quite a lot. I found out yesterday he's even lobbying to get the charges against Julian Assange dropped in America, which is, I don't know, I think it's kind of based and good. Even though obviously Julian Assange has done some interesting things, I think that's a really interesting push for, uh, I don't know, Australia in general. I'm happier that our relationship with our closest trading partner has kind of simmered down a little bit since the Albanese government has been in power, and I'm very happy to see the implementation of ICAC, because the Anti-Corruption Commission, hopefully that restores a little bit of faith in government, because we see all over the world at the moment a lot of distrust in government and a lot of you know leaning towards conspiracy theories and that sort of thing. So I think that's really positive, and I'm excited to see what happens in regards to childcare and I don't know. I don't think they're doing enough on climate change though. So I'll look about that every day of the week.
Speaking about distrust in government and misuse of government resources, what are your thoughts? Not making an accusation that it was directly involved. Just want to make that super clear. Just this particular party and previous events that have transpired. But what are your thoughts on the unfortunate recent attacks on Jordan Shanks, aka Friendly Geordies?
I think it's really scary. I just think that the political climate all over the world is getting quite polarized, with people who are falling down conspiracy, right wing, authoritarian kind of talking points and rhetoric. I have my own criticisms of Geordie just in the way that he approaches some of these things, but the fact of the matter is he's made political conversation accessible to an audience that might not otherwise be engaged in political conversation. So I think that's a really good thing. But obviously, that makes you a lot of enemies. And I think it's really scary. I was terrified that day. I was pretty terrified. I'm not as big or as relevant as Geordie's because I tend to avoid YouTube. But I don't know. It's pretty terrifying. Like, just as somebody open about politics on the internet, you do sometimes get the stark reminder that you're probably not 100% safe, especially as somebody on the left who talks about like feminism and things like that, where a lot of people take those concepts to mean something entirely different to what they actually are.
Thank you so much for answering both of those questions. I really
Oh,
appreciate that.
no, that's all
Um,
right.
the other question that I have, so you were playing a lot of Dota 2, and that's sort of how initially your friends were saying, oh yeah, you should get into playing, you doing this on Twitch. How long did that sort of go for before you started doing Real Talk Tuesday? Was it, or Real Talk Thursday?
Probably like a year, maybe.
Yeah, yeah,
Maybe a
right.
little less than a year. I don't know. I started doing a lot of talking because that's just what people started enjoying. But I love playing. I played 5 games of Dota last night. I still really enjoy playing it.
Yeah, cool.
It tickles my brain in the right way.
Yeah, awesome. And do you keep
Yeah.
up with the competitive scene?
I do watch, I mean, I'll watch the international every year.
Yep.
I don't tend to follow all of like the DPC,
Yep.
mainly because I just don't have the time.
Totally understandable.
But I enjoy it when I get to watch it, especially if I'm with friends. It's one of the
Yeah.
best esports. Once, if you know how to play Dota, even to a kind of rudimentary level, it's one of the best esports to watch. It's just so exciting.
Mm. Better than League?
Oh, so much better than League. It's like it's League for intellectuals.
Oh shit, big call.
Yeah.
Sure, Lockie'd have a thing or two to say about that. No, I'm pretty sure he's
Uh,
Dota 2 player from way back, actually.
yeah, no, he likes both.
Yeah, he does. Did you ever play the original?
Warcraft?
Like as in the
No.
Warcraft 3 mod, yeah.
Nah,
Nah,
nah.
just into Dota 2.
No, that
Yeah,
was
no, that's
before
cool.
my time. I
Yeah,
was
fair
what
play.
I watched a lot of Husky Starcraft
Okay.
back in the day, but my game was actually Neopets. So
Oh, nice.
yeah, I was playing like the web page game because I
Oh
was
yeah,
never
dude.
able to afford like the kind of computer you needed to be able to like
Oh,
play.
absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
that was like I think I barely scraped in there with Dota. Like I managed to play one game on a really chugging slow computer, and
Yeah.
I was exactly the same. I think that was like kind of our generation though, like coming up with like like RuneScape. There was just like a lot of flash games that ran on browsers that you could play. Habbo Hotel. I ran
Yep.
quite a successful Italian restaurant on Habbo Hotel there for a while.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, no, it was that's really interesting.
It's so much more accessible these days, which is really cool for people.
Totally. Pix, we are nearing the end of our time here today. I'd just like to ask you a question that I ask pretty much everyone that comes on the show. Um, it's basically I really want these episodes to be a showcase of who you are as the streamer, as the content creator, but also uh, sort of gear my questions around things that can also be helpful for new streamers, because I think that's a large impetus as to why I started doing this series, is because I'm genuinely really interested in content creation as a career. Um, so I have a couple of questions for you, but my first one would be, what if you had just a few words of wisdom for new streamers that are sort of at the start of their journey, so maybe in that first year bracket there, or maybe even streamers that just sort of haven't really found their footing yet, what would it sort of be?
Well, I don't oftentimes consider myself a content creator.
Mm,
I'm more of a community facilitator in now what I do. Mainly because I think in order, if you want to be a live streamer, you have to really like interacting with people and you have to care about people. You have to be able to read fast and you need to be able to remember things about people in your chat. Not many creators will get the chance to just make content where they're not engaging, well, like even slightly engaging with the chat. It's very hard to go from 0 viewers to lots of viewers, where you have that kind of like fans of a content creator dynamic. When you're building a stream on Twitch, you're building a community, one social connection at a time, and you have to care about people to be able to do that. If you want to be a content creator, it's much easier to do so on YouTube, where your videos last forever and you can build an audience that way. But if you're going to do it on Twitch, it's far more about like that community building. And like I started from 2 viewers and going up. And my biggest piece of advice for building those connections is building connections not only between yourself and your viewers, but between the viewers themselves. And that requires a level of confidence in your content, because occasionally you have viewers and then they disappear and go off, and make friendships, but it's a good thing as well. So I think of myself more as like a community conversation facilitator, and I it's weird because I did want to be a content creator, but I just don't think that's it doesn't feel like what I do, and it doesn't feel like what I am, even though technically I do make content, if that makes sense.
yeah, no, for
My skill
sure.
my skill set is not what I think people consider traditional content creation.
Yeah.
Does that
Interesting.
make sense?
Yeah, it does. I got to say, on a personal level though, like I find like what you talk about really interesting, and I know that there's a lot of other sort of political commentators and people in that sort of space that discuss world events and facilitate conversations around world events that do have a presence on YouTube. Is it really just sort of the editing part that's sort of keeping you off there, or is that an area that maybe you've thought about
I've,
exploring, or you'd like to explore in the future?
I've thought about it a lot. I look mentally, I just can't sit down for 6 hours at a time and edit a video of my face.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not conducive to good mental health for me. Like I really
Absolutely.
don't mind doing it live because I don't really have to like acknowledge that
Yeah.
so much. Um, so I'm really impressed by anybody who can sit there and edit hours of footage of their face. And like the real truth is I've just never been able to afford an editor.
Yeah.
And the couple of times I've gotten to a spot where I could potentially, pay for an edited video because I would never exploit anybody's labor,
Mm-hmm.
except for my mods. Do you know? That's a joke. Anyway, not the point. But
Explore Miggy all day.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah. But it's hard to find somebody who has an understanding of how to edit political videos. Like once
Mm,
you're Hassan size, they make themselves, right?
yeah.
And he can afford multiple editors who just churn out content and it goes all over the internet. Whereas for me, that's not how it works
Mm,
yet. Especially because like I don't have sponsors and rely on like community funding to
yeah.
do this as a job. So, yeah, that kind of keeps me away. But also, a lot of the political debate that happens on YouTube is a lot of drama.
Yeah.
And the best thing that I have managed to do, even though it has reduced my growth significantly, is avoid most of that to this point. It's definitely more comfortable for me to stay on the fringe of that kind of interpersonal but political drama,
Fair
even though
play.
people seem to like it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's it. I mean, you've got to follow your heart at the end of the day, right? And like,
Yeah.
I mean, you've gotten to where you are by doing that. So, I trust your judgment at the end of the
Yeah.
day. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much for coming on and chatting to us today, Pix. I really appreciate it.
You're very
Um,
welcome.
I'll put all of Pixel's links in the description below. Be sure to go and check her out on Twitch. I'll most likely be there lurking away. Definitely go check her out. Some really valid points, really facilitate some really interesting conversations, and has a really beautiful voice, as I mentioned before. So thank you again for coming on, guys.
You're
I'll
very
catch you
welcome.
in the next one. See you later.